Hello everybody, and welcome to the Homestead's Facebook page and YouTube channel. Welcome to part 2 of how to construct a split rail fence. So the video I posted last week showed you how to actually go about splitting the rails, and I had some positive feedback on that, so I thought I would do the second part here today. As you can see, the posts are held together by some wire here. The reason I've chosen to do that is the posts here are made from cedar. It's something I had readily available on the property, and in the ground it's going to last significantly longer than any other type of wood that I had lying around, or growing I should say. Basically the reason that I chose to do the wiring to hold the posts together is that I had no idea there was so much clay on our property. So on this side, digging down, I ran into clay at about 12 to 18 inches depending on where I was digging. So instead of going 3 feet into the ground as I was shoveling by hand, there's a whole ton of rocks here that you can see on the surface, and just below the surface, I can't really, there's one over there, and some of the bigger ones here that I dug up. Anyways, so yeah, I was digging this all out by hand, and having bumped into clay really early on, I decided that I would be only putting these posts 2 feet into the ground. They're 7-foot posts, so I have 5 feet above ground. And traditionally, people that created these types of fence generally only went about 2 feet into the ground anyways. So just to provide them with some extra support, I wired them together. I wrapped a ratchet around the two tops here, and putting the rails in, I went with the widest pieces that I had on the bottom, and as I went up, the pieces became narrower, so that I could put a ratchet across the two posts, ratchet them in together as closely as possible, and then before placing the rest of the rails on top, I wired them in 5, 6, 7 times depending on the posts and the size and the weight and stuff that they were going to bear. Wired them together and then looped. See if I can show you inside here. There you go. So looped the wiring, as you can see, buried in here, back in and around itself several times to ensure that there be less slippage over the years and immediately upon the release of the ratchet. So yeah, the posts are cedar. They're 2 feet in the ground and then wired together to provide some support and stability. I can't move these when they were just placed in the ground, and then the soil was placed back around the base of the post. They were definitely movable, so it's definitely supplied a lot more resilience for these posts, a lot more strength. Over in the corner, there's still a few that I have to get to, and as you can see, some of the posts are uneven because the ground's uneven, so I'm going to go around at some point and cap all the posts, like cut them so that they appear more even, and finish tying some of the posts together. But yeah, that's generally it. I mean, the cedar, there's a special tool that I can't remember the name of that I purchased again from Princess Auto to debark all the posts. And initially I started out taking all the bark off the poplar that I used for railings, but after I started to run out of time, on the other side here you can see the darkness on the bottom of the rails. I gave up on trying to get all the bark off these old poplars. It's really stubborn anyways, but I would really suggest getting the bark off the cedars and getting the moisture away from them, as the bark contains a resin that's going to retain significantly more moisture, and I expect that within a year or so the bark will fall off the poplar and it won't really affect the longevity of the wood. But with these posts going in the ground, you know, anything you can do to kind of keep them drier is going to make them last longer. So yeah, that's really about it. I mean, dug down 2 feet, separated them between 6 and 8 inches, and then you can see the stacking method. I put some cedar down on the ground, the little pieces that I had lying around after cutting the trees down, to keep them up off the ground and drier, the bottom rails. And then they just, you know, 2 bottom rails, and then the next section would have this one, where are we here? This one here goes on top, and then you put 2 more, and that one goes on top, and so forth along the fence. So there's no nails supporting anything when it comes to the rails. There's no screws or anything like that. The only modern appliance that I used to build this fence was again the bit of wire to just ensure some stability. And it's really great because with the posts ratcheted together and held firmly in place, then you know, you can see that this doesn't move at all. It's really firm, so it'll provide a good growing structure. And as you go up, then, you know, they're a little looser and a little less tight fitting, but that's okay. The whole thing is stable, you know, 3 to 4 feet out of the ground, and the last 1.5 or 2 feet or so is a little less stable, but it's not going to you know, stop this fence from doing what I want it to do, which is really to provide some growing structure for vines and different things. And basically I built this because there's some apple and pear trees in here, and this year they were all blooming and had a bunch of apples and stuff growing off of them, and deer continue to come actually right down the driveway, walk over and raid the garden and the fruit trees. So all the apples, when they were about half grown, were consumed in a night, and the branches were ripped off and damaged, and the trees sustained some damage. So I know that a 5-foot fence isn't going to keep deer out, but if you can envision this fence in a couple years covered in vines, and then with bushes, berry bushes, etc., planted on either side, and the fence going from, you know, 1.5 feet wide to 4 or 5 feet wide, and having some bushes that contain thistles and deterrents. That's really all this fence was built for. Is not a entirely preventative measure, but more as a deterrent. And I'm sure it will accomplish that. Next year, in the gap you can see here in the middle, we're going to build a trellis, and a couple gates will go on there, and this will all be filled with mulch, and this side will be the perennial, and the farther side over there will continue to be the vegetable growing area. And yeah, I mean, I think it really suits the old house. It's gonna do its job, and it was a lot of labor, but in the end I think that it looks good. And you know, these materials were all sourced from our property. So these posts range from anywhere from $75 to $80 a piece, and the rails are $5 a piece, 50 posts, and 125 bits of rail, 130 bits of rail, calculate around $4,500. So pretty significant savings if you have the ability to do this around your place and you like the way it looks. Have at her. You know, it's again a difficult task, but really worth it, and I love the way that it looks. So any questions or comments, feel free to ask, and I'll give you the best advice that I can give. And as always, thanks for watching. Appreciate the subscriptions, the likes, and the shares. Have a great day, everybody, and keep on growing.